Hey everyone, welcome to another episode on Let's Talk About Us with Uche. So basically, a few weeks ago, I was opportune to get reached out by somebody who follows me on my podcast, and she's also Nigerian American, and she's very passionate about Nigerian issues, Black American issues, and specifically mental health. And she wanted to kind of link up with me and talk about this particular topic because it's something that affects a lot of us. And I'm really honored to have her here today. Could you please introduce yourself?
Hi everyone, my name is Pamela Iheme. I was originally born in Louisiana. I was raised in Lagos and then I came back to the United States in Atlanta, Georgia when I was 13 years old. I went to school there till I was around, I'd say 22. So when I graduated college, I got married and then I moved to Tulsa, Oklahoma. So here I am.
Oh, oh wow. So you were born in Louisiana and then you moved back to Nigeria age. What age?
Two.
Age two. Oh wow. And then you
Yeah.
moved back to America at 13.
13 or 12. It was in 2003.
Okay. And you haven't been back since.
No, I have. I used to visit home
Oh,
once
okay.
a year.
Okay. But you haven't gone back to Nigeria to kind of live permanently. Like you didn't go to high school, secondary school
No,
back in Nigeria.
no.
Okay. Okay. Well, I do appreciate you reaching out to me. Could you please share with me what made you reach out to me, if you don't
Well,
mind?
the main thing that made me reach out to you wasn't even the mental health, although it was a major factor. But the main thing that made me reach out to you was when you were discussing a lot of things I've not heard other African bloggers discuss. You were discussing
Hmm.
about how, again, like I told you the first time, how India isn't all that, and
Yeah.
Africans need to stop acting like they're so inferior and Indians are so superior because the bulk of them
Hmm.
are poor. You also discussed about birth control, family planning. We're having all these kids. There aren't
Oh,
enough
yes.
resources. Resources are shrinking. And what is you're birthing all these kids into poverty? That needs to be addressed. You also discussed something else. You discussed, I can't remember, but it was very important. You discussed marriage. You talked about mental health. You talked about the LGBT community, which again, that's a topic that most Africans, even the most liberal of Africans, shy
Hmm.
away from.
Yep.
So
Even
I,
though
I hadn't
it's
heard
very
anything.
important.
Yeah, and I hadn't heard that from, especially from a male. I
Yep.
hear stuff from women like, pray for them or something like that. But most men are just like, either they don't even discuss them, or it's just like, let them do whatever they do over there, as long as it's not,
Yeah.
in my family or my kid.
I hear you. Thank you so much. I do appreciate the fact that not just that you're Nigerian American, but also you see my point of view.
Yeah.
Obviously, I talk a lot about these social issues that affect every single one of us. Hence why I titled my podcast, Let's Talk About Us, like actually try to be honest as to some of the bullshit ass lies we speak into existence, some of the things that we try to pretend that they don't exist in the name of God, in the name of tradition, or whatever it is, but unfortunately, we still blindly perpetuate them without realizing that we are. And then we turn around and act surprised as to why those problems not going away. And as I've talked about on my own some of the previous podcasts that I've made, podcast episodes that I've made, I was born in Nigeria.
Okay.
My family is typical Nigerian, typical Igbo. I was raised in a very typical traditional African home. Most Nigerians would relate, especially if you were born and raised in Nigeria. You could relate. It's the same.
Yes.
Go to school, eat your food, do your homework, and go to church. My
Don't
family's
talk
Seventh Day
past
Adventist.
21. Be respectful
Hey,
of your
there
elders,
you
no matter
go.
how abusive they are to you. Yeah.
Yep. Don't talk to girls. Don't bring nobody home. You stay away from
Don't
this
get anyone
person. Stay away from.
pregnant. Yeah.
There you
Yeah.
go. Well, actually, we didn't even get to the part of don't get anyone pregnant. You know what I'm saying? Because that was. I feel like that was too deep for them to talk about. But it was just basically the same. Proper and friend conversations,
Hmm.
interactions. It was just kind of. It was almost laissez-faire, but for the most part, a lot of my interaction with my family was centered around church. It was always
Yes.
God this and God that. And there's nothing wrong with being religious, as I've mentioned on my podcast many times. I have grown to not be religious because I made that decision that it doesn't serve me as a human being. Like
Me too.
I went
I
into
Yeah, me
venturing
too.
into spirituality because, to me, that speaks more my truth than religious, than religion. And not to say that religion does not serve that purpose of reaching spirituality, but it's just a conscious decision that I made for myself, and because of that path, that mentality that I've kind of conjured into myself, I've been able to kind of see things from a totally different perspective. Hence why I talk about a lot of things that a lot of people, Nigerians, are either oblivious to or in denial of. So that's why I enjoy talking about these issues, and I really do appreciate the fact that you're on board with this. Could you please kind of tell me about your background, your family history, how you were raised, who raised you, what was the dynamics between you and your family, your parents, siblings, whatnot, and
Yeah.
how maybe that upbringing kind of affected you as an adult, like some of the mental health issues that you think are most prevalent within your family in your life, or even within Nigeria as a whole.
So I was raised very different from most Nigerians, and I mean like on a completely different level, because I come
Hmm.
from a family where, my family, if they were in the US, they would be considered like, what is essentially, boule, upper echelon,
Oh, I see.
what, yeah, my dad went to school in London. He went to
Mm,
primary school in London. My dad is in his 60s, so think about being a little black boy in probably what is essentially an all white, English
yeah.
elementary school. My dad was very very spoiled. He was the first son. His father managed and owned some of the first businesses around the Eastern region.
Hmm.
And he was my dad. He went to school in the UK, and then he went to
Mm,
school in the US. He came to school in the US in the 70s. He and I mean, and he used to get a new car every month.
mm,
He was, yeah, he was very well catered to by his father. And then my mom, she had a very very liberal father. Her father was very big on educating women, something that most people viewed as a taboo back then. But he actually used to get, cursed out for it. They're like, what is wrong with you? Do you not understand that if these women become educated, they're going to try to overtake us? And he's like, his
mm,
argument was, these women outlive us. Men, we tend to die earlier. We get sent off to war. We have to work more. Who takes
mm,
care? Who will teach these kids
mm,
anything? And back then there was no birth control, so his family was looking at like 8 to 10 kids.
yeah.
So he's like, who is going to teach these children anything and push them out into the real world to become somebody when we're dead? So he was very big on educating women, teaching them how to read and write. He took that upon himself because he was taught by British Christian missionaries how to read, how to write, how to read maps, how to do a lot of things. Um, Fun fact about both of my grandparents on my mom's side, they were both the only surviving children of their parents.
Oh, wow.
My Yeah, yeah, some long story. But back to my grandfather. He today he would definitely be considered what is essentially like a feminist, which,
Mm,
I just feel he was born in the wrong era. Poor man, he
mm,
really was born in the wrong era, because he when the British were educating him, he didn't, as much as he did not care for their ideologies when it came to school, but sorry, not school, when it came to like how blacks and whites should interact, but he liked their
mm,
ideologies when it came to men and women being equal, and
mm,
everybody being educated, because he just felt like that made for a better society, because it did.
mm,
More education equaled, more access to jobs and stuff like that. So this is the kind of
yeah.
family I grew up in, a lot of education. I was not raised around like, a lot of, compared to a lot of my friends, I was not raised around religious fanaticism. I was not raised around,
Oh, I see.
don't go to, don't talk to boys, and don't do like, yeah, I was allowed to do whatever I wanted. I just chose not to, because I felt like when it came anything having to do with, boys and men, I just kind of felt like that was for adults. And I felt like
Mm,
the consequences of that are things you can only handle as an adult. Like if you have to get an abortion, if you have to give your baby up for adoption, if you have to go get a job and take care of a baby, these are only decisions you can properly execute as an adult. You cannot do these things as a teenager. So for me, I just felt like that's for adults. When I become 18 or 21 and up, we can have that discussion. But I always just, kind of kept my head down, studied, stayed in school, because everybody around me was highly educated. So
Mm,
I kind of just felt like, there's no other choice but to be very educated. And I did
mm-hmm.
that. I used to read books, go to the library. I was taught critical thinking from a very young age because I never got like, how like you misbehave and you get spanked. I never got spanked. My mom would give me a book, and she would have me just a small book, have me read it, analyze it, and then I would have to write a whole paper, about a
Mm-hmm.
10-page paper that had to be grammatically correct.
Oh wow.
Yeah, everything, because my mom was an English teacher, so everything would have to be grammatically correct. If I messed up on one thing, I would have to restart all over again. And this was handwritten. This was before computers. This is all handwritten.
Mm-hmm.
So I did not act up as a kid, because when I thought about writing those 10-page papers, I was like, nah, whatever this thing is, I'm not going to do it.
Yeah.
Because
Are you
I mean,
an only kid?
I'm the only child between my mom and my dad. I am not the
Oh,
only
okay.
child. My mom remarried, my dad remarried. They have kids with their other spouses, but between my mom and my dad, I'm the only child.
And while they were married, while they were married and living together, you were the only kid.
Yeah, I was.
Okay.
Well,
And so
I
they
was, I am. So yeah.
oh, okay. So that means they basically had a lot of time to kind of zone in on you, focus on you. So you were really not lacking much, right?
Yeah, I lived mostly with my mom and her family, and my dad lived in the U.S. and he just sent money
Oh, I
back.
see.
So
Oh,
that's how that
okay.
went.
Okay. Wow. So would you say that that exposure that you got from your family, being very studious and, books and this and that and also being a woman kind of pushed you to be more of an independent, more of a go-getter, more of a
Well,
bookworm,
I mean,
type of woman?
I was told that as a kid. I was told like your life is going to be harder because you're a woman. Your life is going to be
Mm,
harder because you're black. So I mean, you need to push it. You really, really need to push it.
mm,
But I saw the opposite happen to a lot of my other female friends who were basically coddled. Their parents were kind of like,
mm,
you're a girl. Don't go out into the world and do what men do. Whereas for me, it was the complete opposite. It was like if if a man is 10 times aggressive, I grew up with women who had who were both educated and also had businesses. This dating all the way back to my great grandmother, who had she was a fish seller. She was a very wealthy woman, and she
mm,
sold fish to the British when they came to Nigeria. So she was a very rich woman. She was one of the richest women. She owned several plantations. So I was always around women I've never been around women who just sat around and got taken care of. I've always
mm,
been around women, and I don't know, maybe it's just a thing with maybe it's my village, but the women in my village, in order for you, if you want to marry a guy from my village or you want to marry a guy from a neighboring village, they pretty much they don't want a woman whose only talent is sitting around having kids. They do not want that. They'll tell
mm.
you, straight up to your face, what do you bring to the table? And just like with the men, when you want to marry, they also ask you, what, because my daughter's not about to take care of you. What are your credentials? What do you bring to the table?
So basically,
So
that early exposure kind of prepared you to be a boss lady, so to speak, and
I don't really consider myself a boss, because I like a boss lady, because like I feel like people like that just kind of boss people around, whereas I'm more willing to work with you, and I don't like to think of myself as like above anyone, because I feel like the only reason I'm I in society I look quote unquote above you is because my family from long time ago, from a couple of, maybe I would say maybe a few decades ago, happen to just have access to education that your family didn't, which is the reason why I'm here today. And I feel like I also made good decisions about, like, because I was taught about finance at an early age. I was taught about, like, if you earn $1,000 a month, every month try to put away 100, and at the end of the year you have so and so. So I was taken to, my mom took me to her businesses as a kid. She showed me how business was ran. My grandfather did the same. He showed me how to, back then there was no Excel. So all the accounting was done by hand. So my grandfather showed me how to do that. Yeah, I was taught a lot of things about finance and money, which was very normal for a lot of women in my village. But again, when I left and I came to the US, I lived in London, then I came to the US, and I saw that a lot of girls really were very illiterate when it came to finance. They just, all they knew was spend. And then they just used to look at me like, oh, she thinks she's better than us because she's good with money. And that was very bizarre to me, because I thought, I truly grew up thinking everyone else knew these things.
What I meant by boss lady is basically kind of made you more independent. Like as a black woman here in America, like you don't feel some type of, would you say you don't feel some type of, some type of social disadvantage, like being here in America, being black, being a woman, you don't feel it is bringing you down. You don't think anything is holding you back. You can
I
achieve
mean,
whatever it is that a man can achieve. You can achieve whatever it is that a black person or a white person can achieve. Would you say that that's the mentality that you got from the early on exposure you got from your family?
I think that because we're both black, so we know how this country views us. You can have all the credentials, you can have all this stuff, and they'll still pick one of their own over you because at the end of the day, they still feel like it's their job to protect these spaces for themselves. You know, so that's why a lot of our people tend to become entrepreneurs and create their own thing. That's actually one of the reasons my husband and I got married, because I truly did not want to sit in some white man's office and beg him for a check. And in a lot of these companies, we are very limited in how we can move up. They barely ever let us move up. A lot of us are in middle management. You barely see any of us in upper management. So I mean, and I worked in oil and gas. I have not seen any other black recruiter, let alone even Nigerian. The bulk of who was in oil and gas, I worked in industries that were predominantly white dominated. I worked in the diamond industry, I worked in oil and gas. I worked in telecom. These were industries that are, telecom is predominantly dominated by Asians. The diamond industry is dominated by Jews. Oil and gas is dominated by, in these parts, they're dominated by whites in the South. So these were industries where, I mean, like, yeah, I felt, and I was happy to be in those industries, but it's one of those things where it's like, thread lightly, because you know how these people are. One small thing and they will get rid of you, because a lot of them already feel like you don't even deserve to be there in the first place, even if you have the credentials to be there.
That's basically what I'm trying to figure out from you. So because of the earlier on exposure that you had, that preparation you had, you don't feel any type of intimidation being in all these spaces. Like, unfortunately, I always like to say that if you want to be successful, if you're a black person in America and you want to be successful, you have to get used to finding yourself in predominantly white spaces. And unfortunately, a lot of our families, a lot of our parents, even including black Americans here in America, they
Hmm.
don't prepare you for that reality. And a lot of times you have a lot of these black people, even from Africa, when they find themselves in predominantly white spaces, they're checking out. They feel some type of
Yeah.
intimidation. They feel like they don't belong there. You don't put enough work because they don't think that there's no hope for you. So it
Hmm.
becomes an intimidation thing. So because of that exposure that you had prior to, would you say that you don't feel some type of intimidation because you're black or because you're a woman? Like you go in there confidently thinking that whatever it is that a white person can do, you can do it too. Whatever it is a white man or a man in general can do, you can do it too. Would you say that that's the case?
I don't really even go in there comparing myself to whites. I'm well aware of the fact that they run these spaces, but I just kind of I just go in, keep my head down, do the little I smile for them, and do my job and go home. But I'm also not a sellout. I'm not gonna let you disrespect me or say anything disrespectful about people like me and just let it slide because I want to check. Because at the end of the day, I'm not poor. If I really wanted to, I could just sit at home and just be a housewife. My husband makes enough where I don't have to really do anything. I choose to work because I like having my own money, and I don't like all the burden to be on him. I think that's unfair. But yeah, I mean, to an extent, yeah, it does. My upbringing does give me the confidence to not be intimidated anytime I see a white face in an interview room, because I know a lot of our people, they don't date. Whenever my mom said, when she came here in the 90s, because she had me here in 91, she said that the African community, the Nigerian community, they they were so frightened of anything white. Like, I mean, they were just like, if they even they would tell, oh, no, we don't go in those neighborhoods, we don't do this, we don't do that, we stay over here. But it was so, and she would just, her coming with her mentality from Nigeria, she would just kind of look like, but she saw them as like just people. And with them living here under the system of white supremacy, especially in a place like Louisiana, she did not understand the kind of hand that white supremacy had, especially in the South.
Yeah, that's very interesting that you said that because that's very true. But unfortunately, a lot of Nigerians are not prepared to face the real world. Like you've been listening to some of my podcasts, I talked about that, how Nigerians don't prepare their kids for the real world. It's basically the same standard: go to school, eat, get straight A's, stay away from boys, stay away from sex, and things like that. But when it comes to interactions, when it comes to relationships, I feel me, for example. looking back into my life, I feel like I was not properly prepared for a lot of, the inner workings of a society, especially in American society, very
Mm-hmm.
diverse American society. And
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately, you have some of these people, or like myself, who are struggling right now, trying to find our base in a society that is not was not created for people like us. People like
Nope.
us were the addendums, were the additions, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Mm-hmm.
we're already dealing with our own personal shit. We're dealing with our own problems and things like that.
Yeah.
And then society is out there telling us we're not good enough for whatever reason, maybe because you're black, because you're a woman, because you're a foreigner, because you're
Yeah.
LGBTQ,
You
or
have a
maybe you
name
have
they
some type
can't
of
pronounce.
disability.
Yeah.
And exactly, and these things unfortunately get to us, but I feel like a lot of times our parents from Nigeria don't prepare us properly for these kinds of like, they don't prepare us enough for what we have to face in reality, um as adults. And I do commend you. I do commend your family for doing a pretty good job with you. The fact that you have your confidence, you don't feel intimidated in white spaces, or you're not intimidated by patriarchy. That's pretty dope. That's pretty neat. That's true. I wish I had that. Would you say that there's anything that you wish your parents could have done for you, though, to kind of prepare you better for, say, relationships, interactions, whatever it is that, like, any mental health issues that you think you're suffering from today as a result of poor preparation from your family or just the Nigerian society in general?
Not from my family. I like you said, my family did. They did a much better job than most families I've seen. Because I don't necessarily have any bad examples about myself and my family, but I have friends who are in, pure fire burning hell right now with their families because their families are just, their families did not prep them for anything. And I mean anything. Their families were just like, go to school and come out and there'll be a job waiting. And as you and I can both see, the economy has changed. A lot of things that,
Hmm.
like, a lot of things that the African community, the immigrant community teaches, because I'm married to an immigrant as well. The immigrant community teaches their kids, go to school, that you go be a doctor. You see what COVID is doing to doctors. COVID is wiping out doctors. People are scared to go into hospitals. The medical field was always one of those fields that black people and immigrants felt like, if I go here, there may be racism, but at least the money's good. I can help my family.
Hmm.
I can help myself. I can be something. I can be something respectable. And now those things are gone. That's why I'm very, very business minded. And again, I come from a long line of entrepreneurs. I grew up around entrepreneurs. So for me, I don't have a problem with doctors. I personally think that we should have a fund for, if I when I get more money in the future, I would love to create a fund for black doctors because we need more of them. But now there is no backup plan, and you're seeing the black community in pure panic. They don't know what to do right now because send your kid to medical school. The kid sees what's happening with doctors in this pandemic and they're like, no. But a lot of parents don't understand that there are other fields where you make money. I don't know if you pay attention to the stock market, but I stock trade on the side. My husband and I,
Hmm.
we do stock trading, we do cryptocurrency on the side. And these are ways to make money. A lot of our parents didn't even know about it. I had to explain. Although my mom is very tech savvy, which is very rare for most African women. But my mom is incredibly tech savvy. But that's because she lived in Asia for 10 years, so she had to be. But she knows a little bit about crypto. I explained more to her, but she's a very curious woman. She'll ask me about things, and I'll tell her. And when she's talking to other women in Nigeria about these things, they're kind of looking at her like, "Huh? What are you talking about?" They have no clue. They have no clue. If it so, our community is really behind in a lot of things, and like back, but my whole point was they're not being prepped. Our
Hmm.
black children, African children, are not being prepped for the future. I mean, you watch. I watch videos from China, from India, from Latin America. I mean, different. Like, okay, here in the U.S., for instance, us us being in the South, a lot of white people, what do they like to do? Because I'm friends with, like, what would be considered, rednecks. I have a family that I'm very close to. They live out in Bartlesville, Oklahoma, and I've known them for about 10 years, and very good people. But they would be considered like, basically like, just they live way way out in the country. These people, this my friend, he has a son. He has four sons that he adopted, and you know what he does on the weekends with his kids? He takes them fishing, hunting. He shows them how to do roofing. These kids are like, the oldest one is 15, the youngest one is 2. But the ones that are like teenagers, they can build homes from scratch. He taught them that. He's an engineer with Koch Industries, but he was born and raised on a farm. So he taught them how to do, like, they can do anything construction. They can do cattle ranching. And these are fields that are in the billions of dollars. Our people don't even know about these things. Like this thing
Mm-hmm.
with the stock market, our people don't even know about it. Like, you saw what happened with GameStop the other day, or AMC. I knew about
Yeah.
that. I didn't have, like, the level of capital to put in like I wanted, but I knew about that. I keep up with all the stock market news, and unfortunately, when I go into the stock market field, or in the cryptocurrency field, I barely see any of us. I barely see any of our people there. And by the time we get in, it's already late. The money has already been made. And I actually I had an argument with a friend the other day because I was trying to explain that to her, and she's like, "Oh, you're always bashing black people. You're always saying that they're not in the game." And I'm like, I saw white boys putting in $50,000, $100,000, and pulling in millions. Our people ain't got that. Our people don't have $50,000 to drop. And these were the same white boys that were saying, "Oh, the economy has hurt us." Yeah, the economy has hurt you, but I don't know any black people, both African or African American, that have 50 large sitting around to drop in the stock
Mm-hmm.
market. And
Mm-hmm.
I saw one that lost 150 grand and he didn't even flinch. That's to show you how much money these people have. Like,
Mm-hmm.
there are so many ways to make money, and our people are stuck in nurse, doctor, and then on
Yeah.
top of that, they're not even investing. They're not in real
Yeah.
estate. They're not buying land. My husband and I, we don't want to buy a house. I don't want a house. What I don't mind us renting until we get enough. Until our kids, when we have kids, our kids go off to college. We go buy a nice, 50-acre piece of land, and we fence it, and we fence it, and it's ours. Because the way I grew up back home, you know we own land back home. Me and him both come from land owning families, so land possession has always been way more important to me than buying a house.
I get what you're saying. And interestingly, I just had this conversation with somebody not too long ago. How a lot of immigrant parents here in America, it's always the path is always so monochromatic. When you have
Very.
your kids here, you want them to be doctors, lawyers, engineers, nurse, and then that's basically it. And honestly, I can't really fault them, to be honest, because a lot of our parents that come from Nigeria or come from Africa, they came from way worse. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
So to them, this
they
being
weren't
in
they
this
weren't
land
prepped.
of milk and yeah, being in this land of milk and honey is an opportunity that they never really had when they were kids. So they're trying to prep their kids to be more pragmatic, to pursue careers that are going to guarantee that they don't end up on the streets. So I get that, but also, unfortunately, I feel like I don't want to say if their imagination is limited because they don't really know the potential of what that kid could do with the privilege of being in America, say like America or maybe Canada or the UK. Because a kid that's born in America or maybe even grew up in America as an American citizen, you have so much privilege, you have so much power for more, so much potential for more. And unfortunately, our parents don't know that and they don't prep
Nope.
us enough for that, you know what I'm saying? But I would say, though, in their defense, and a lot of the African parents' defense, it comes from a good place, from a good place. They just want to make sure that their kids don't end up suffering like they did. You know what I'm saying? Make sure that the kids have food on the table, make sure the kids don't end up on the streets, don't beg for money, dumb beg for food, so that their enemies don't have anything to say. So I totally do get that.
Yeah.
I get that it's coming from a place of love and pragmatism, but unfortunately, money isn't everything. If you're going to be a doctor, more than likely you will make some type of money. If you're going to be an engineer, you will make some type of money. Money will not be a problem for you as long as you're not extremely expensive. But the issue is that there are other things too that are extremely important when it comes to navigating life, especially as a black person, especially as a child of a black immigrant in a foreign country that is predominantly white, you know, like mental health problems, like confidence issues, people skills. I talked about how a lot of Nigerians don't teach their kids people skills. When it comes to relationships, it's don't bring boys, stay away from bad gangs, and read your Bible and things like that. When it comes to spirituality, I feel like Nigerians, or at least Nigerian parents, don't prepare their kids. Um, about spirituality. They don't. It's about read the Bible. Or if you ask, I remember when I was a kid, when I asked my dad like a question from the Bible or something like that, it would be because God said so, because it's a sin or
Hmm.
something like that. They don't engage their kids into a deeper conversation to reach understanding. And these are things that will build a person's conversation skills, people skills, boost your confidence. That does not exist. And as a result, you have a bunch of Nigerian doctors, lawyers, and business people who have money, who look good, but mental health is very, very depreciated, and that becomes a problem. That becomes a pandemic on its own. Um, do you know why that may be, though? Do you know why Nigerian parents don't feel comfortable talking about, or at least the talk of mental health is not a big deal within the Black community, specifically the African community? Like, is this some type of taboo talking about mental health issues
Absolutely.
within Black?
Absolutely, it is. So there was something you said before about how our parents came here and they just kind of like they didn't have that much to they didn't they basically our parents were not prepped. They weren't prepped on anything, and they were so ignorant of a lot of things. And we come from Nigeria is a place where it's like it's a um it's a survival's playground. It's about getting the essentials, a roof over your head, a person who has a roof over their head, food on their plate, clothes on their back. They feel like they have the essentials in life, and they just need to be grateful for that. Things like mental health, things like vacation, things like even having a decent just talk, because a lot of Nigerian couples here, they don't even talk to their partners. A lot of them just kind of feel like, I
Hmm.
married you just so we can have kids and continue our bloodline, and that's it. A
Yeah.
lot of them, I know couples that have been married 20 years and sleep in separate rooms. Um they don't believe in things like couples counseling. The wife goes to church, the
But
husband,
why is
he's
that though? Is that like a cultural thing,
it
or is
is.
that like
It
a?
it it is absolutely a cultural thing because they feel like these things are luxuries, and the average
Mm,
African does not understand how to enjoy themselves. They were not ever taught how to enjoy themselves. They were always taught that everything in life, like how you enjoy your, like for example, when an African or Nigerian wants to go on vacation, they don't. There's so many places you can go on vacation here in the U.S. They don't go. Their vacation is Nigeria. Nigeria is not a vacation place. Nigeria is incredibly hectic. It is very hectic. The second the people in
Preach.
the village find out you are home, everybody's lining up at you. I know because I've my uncle gave me a bag of 150,000 naira, and I had people coming in. Oh, we heard you come back. Oh, this one happened, that one happened. I was literally having to go upstairs every 10 minutes to go bring out 5,000 for this one, 10,000 for. How can you rest when people, the entire village is hounding you? How can you rest? You can't. And then you do all that, and then you come back here, right back to the working 12, 15 hours a day. That's why there's so many stories of these Nigerian nurses dying, just dropping dead at
Mhm.
work because they're overworking themselves. Our people do not understand. They think that things like vacation, they think that's white people stuff, and that makes me, or they like, for example, I put on my Snapchat when my husband and I went to Miami last year. I put on my Snapchat, everybody thought that we were so unbelievably freaking rich because you went to Miami. If you go to the Miami
Mhm.
in September, August, it's not that expensive. If you go in the busy months, it is. If you go in like, right before the fall, a lot of tourist places, if you go like in September or August, it's not that expensive because that's off peak season.
I don't know if it's pride. I don't know if it's like a thing
It's
of
not
shame
it's not pride,
or
it's ignorance. It's major
ignorance.
ignorance.
Yes.
Their parents never went on vacation. Their parents never taught them what vacation was. Their parents, like, even with something like food, our people will eat jollof rice and fufu their whole life.
Hmm.
They will never try, and they won't even try other local African foods. They won't even try
Yep.
Ghanaian food, Ethiopian food. Let's not even talk about Italian or Chinese. They will never even try that stuff. They will eat fufu and egusi soup every day, and be okay with that. And
Yep.
you're just, and when, like, someone like me, I like to try different foods, and they always tell me that I'm spoiled,
Because you're
or
weird.
because,
Yeah.
yeah, they say that I'm
Or
spoiled.
you're
They say, like,
white.
because my family is privileged. They assume that my family is privileged. They assume that I do the things I do because I've been here a long time.
The irony of it is how a lot of these people are also very educated. Like on paper, they're very educated. Like living
But
here in America, I've met a lot of
but
Nigerians who are very
education in
educated.
school and education in real life.
Exactly, exactly. I've seen a lot of Nigerians who have master's degrees, PhDs. Matter of fact, I remember when I think, 15 or 16, and I was depressed, and I told one of my uncles that I was depressed, and he basically reprimanded me because he thought I was being ungrateful. How can you be in America and be depressed, and blah and blah and blah. And the interesting thing is, this man has a doctorate in healthcare. You would think somebody as old as he was, I think he was in his 50s at the time, who has kids. He's a father. He's very educated. Is involved in the church. You would think somebody like that would actually understand that this 15-year-old kid has needs, and it's very important for you to actually pay attention, be understanding, be patient, um, to rectify this kid's issues, because it could actually build up to something much more hectic as he gets older. I mean, look at the state of the world right now with this COVID thing. So many families are broken.
Absolutely.
So many things are going on, not
Hmm.
just the economy itself, but like people's mental health. People have mental health breakdowns. Fortunately, a lot of the people who are coping the best from my perspective are people who had some type of strong attachment styles, from their upbringing, from their parents, those kind of people. And of course, people who have a stable job, stable occupation. Those are the people who are faring well. But people who their parents did not prepare them with the right mental health equipment. They're struggling right now. Marriages are breaking. Domestic
Hmm.
abuse is off the roof.
Yeah.
A lot of people are realizing things about their
Your
spouses and
spouse,
their
yes.
partners that they didn't even realize it was a problem. Because now you're forced to stay in the same vicinity, in the same household with your spouse every day. That is
Hmm.
becoming hectic. And I just feel like that's just me anyway. I feel like a lot of black people in general don't do a good job, to identify, to acknowledge, and to try to rectify some of these problems at a really, really young age. I can
But
understand back in Nigeria. I can understand back in Nigeria where, like the priority is different, the goals are different, the interest is different. Most people are trying to survive. The average Nigerian is trying to survive. They can't be bothered with vacation. You have to
yes.
hustle so you can eat. And a lot of women in Nigeria married so that they can marry up, and that will be their ticket out of poverty and things like that. I get that. But here in
Yes.
America, where we have more opportunities for more, we have education, and you have American kids, like you have your kids in America. Those kids are born with privilege. I don't understand this whole close-mindedness and lack of capability, and even itch to want to excel more, when it comes to mental health.
So let me address that for you. Number one thing that kills our people is religious fanaticism. This idea that we
Hmm.
if we pray, we're good.
Yes.
That's the biggest thing. This thing of a lot of our people, unfortunately, are intellectually lazy. They do not like to think, because when they think, there's the possibility that maybe at some point this was my fault. Maybe
Hmm.
I shouldn't have been so hard on my kids. Maybe I shouldn't have been so hard on my wife. Maybe I shouldn't have been so hard on my husband. But then it's like, instead of me taking responsibility for that, I will not. What I will do is I will blame society, or I will blame the devil. They're quick to say,
Yep.
the
Or
devil,
blame the enemies.
demons. Yeah, the village people. Village people are at work.
Yep.
The devil, demons. And I'm just like, I've always asked them, like, this whole devil demon stuff, how come other immigrant communities are not suffering from this? Because if you look at, let's not if you look at, like us, the Chinese, the Indians, the Russians, other immigrant communities, they've mapped out a little space for themselves, and they're doing what they can. I mean, I would say the most successful are the Chinese, because those ones have banks. I don't know any other group in this country that has a full-on bank for their people. The Chinese have banks in LA. So but it seems like our people, that thing that was kind of beaten into their head, that go to school, come out and get a job. Unfortunately, that cycle just continues, where it's like our existence is based on a white man giving us a job, and it's
Hmm.
beyond tragic. And it really is beyond tragic. It's sad. And on top of that, outside of like academia, we don't have skills. Like you said, we don't have conversation skills, we don't have interpersonal skills. A lot of them don't
Hmm.
even have personal hygiene skills. They're scared to talk about, yeah, you get what I mean. They're
Yeah. Yeah.
and they
Of
don't,
course.
some of them don't even want to go to like Walmart to buy, products. If you see the way they look like they're straight out of the village. That's what my mom used to complain to me. She used to say, she would, we would have discussions over the phone, and she said she was so angry when she came here because she's like, people, those of us in Lagos, we're more enlightened than the people here. You come to their house here, they are giving you akama and akara for breakfast. No one does that in Lagos. They don't have, they won't go get their hair done. They won't go buy proper, lotion, and they'll be using like these ugly, disgusting bleaching creams. They look stupid. Like, when you live in America, why that mentality needs to leave your head. A lot of our people are also very, very scared. They do not intermingle with other communities. They don't talk to other communities. So because of that, they're like, I've for my whole
Close-minded.
life,
I'd say close-minded, not necessarily scared.
extremely close-minded. They don't want to hear anything outside of that one that they know, and that's why, as a people, we are stuck. One of the reasons why I know how a lot of the things that I know. I have friends from around the world. My my dating and relationships, I've never dated a Nigerian guy, not because I didn't want to, but just because I kind of felt like the ones around me, we weren't really, like, I felt like their mentality was so behind, and that's not something that I can deal with. I'm very forward thinking. I'm very much like into tech. Like, in a lot of spaces I go, like I said, I'm the only Black person. I attend seminars on sex and human sexuality that our people don't even, they pretend like sex doesn't exist. They pretend like they just kind of pray and a baby comes up. And I'm just like,
the typical Nigerian does not feel comfortable talking about having some of these conversations because they think it's a drag. They think it's
but the
too
thing is,
Western.
it's not even about sex. It's about learning about your body.
Yeah, of course.
They're girls who don't even know how, things about, like, reproduction, things about, like, your what's it called, ovulation. They don't even know, like, how to take care of themselves, take care of feminine hygiene. They do not know these things. And I'm not even talking about having sex with a man or even LGBT stuff. Just how to take care of yourself. How does your uterus even work? They don't know these things. And then you see a girl who has who is like 35 talking about, oh, the reason I can't get pregnant is because of village people. No, you can't get pregnant because you're 35. It's going to be harder for you to get pregnant. You have to exercise. You have to be healthy. You have to change your food. You have to do so many things. Like, you can't
Also,
eat
your attitude, working your personality,
you
things
can't
like
eat
that, the way you
fried
talk
food
to
all
people.
day every day and then get mad when you can't get pregnant. Like, these things all go hand in hand. Like, our people, there's so much that they just don't know. So much.
I don't think it's fair to generalize every Nigerian though, because even though that those
No,
are
I'm
those are
not.
the ones that are very prevalent, but
No, I'm not.
there also are Nigerians, like people like you and I, who at least who have the itch for more, who are more aware, who actually take initiative, hold ourselves accountable, and actually are responsible people who go out there for knowledge and things like that. But I do get what you mean, though. I
But
do get it.
what caused that, right? You know what caused this whole movement, because a lot of our generation grew up on the internet. So we have access to other communities, and we're seeing that this whole, the way we are, and the way we think, and some of the
Hmm.
things we do is not normal. Like, it's not normal to be screamed at by your parents all the time, constantly,
Yep.
for no reason. It is not normal. It's not normal to tolerate culture as abuse as culture. These things are not normal. It's not normal for someone to impose, to basically want to live vicariously through you because they did not do what they wanted to do in life. So now they're imposing that on you. These things are not normal. And there's also there's a lot more allies. There's a lot of
Yeah.
support groups. There's a lot of allies. Back then, there were no allies. When I was growing up, when I was like, 13, 14, there were no allies. Now, like, in my sister's generation, my sister's 21, her generation, they don't just have allies within Nigeria. They have allies globally. Growing up, I saw, women get abused in marriages, and there was nowhere to leave. Now
Hmm.
there are communities, and when women's organizations, that if you are being battered in your marriage, you call them, they'll come get you. They'll help you find work. They'll help you seek therapy. They'll help you do a lot of things. This did not exist when I was growing up, and this wasn't even thought of when my mom was growing up. We evolved. Unfortunately, there is a huge battle. The thing is, our group, us millennials, I don't know, I think you are a millennial as well. Us millennials, we have seen, we've lived life our parents' way, we've lived life our way, and then we're also living life, with the way of Gen Z. So we're kind of like, we
Hmm.
kind of absorb, we're like the ball that absorbs, we're the sponge that absorbed, like,
Hmm.
everything. Because Gen Z is all about, like, making money on social media. They're all about self. They're all about self-sufficiency. They're not trying to have kids at a young age. They're not trying to listen to anything their parents have to say, because they have such a support network that, if their parents say anything to them, they just go off and be with their own people and kind of go from there. Whereas like our group, we're kind of just starting to break away from our parents and forming our own path. And then the older group, a lot of them are still kind of like under the boot of their parents, but they're also getting a little bit more enlightened. Where, like, you talking about trying to find yourself, you have a lot of people your age who are also trying to find themselves. At least that's a discussion that's being had. Whereas before, find yourself how? You have a job, you're eating, find yourself there. That was the mentality.
I think one of the issues that I have with a lot of Nigerian parents who have their kids here is, or at least something I've realized, I've noticed as a problem is, they come here and they expect to impose the same upbringing that they had back in Nigeria, without realizing that, first of all, that's a different country, and second off, that's a different time. So your kid that you have in America, or at least that grew up in America even, is not going to have the same exposure, the same experience, the same surrounding, the same environment as you had back in Nigeria. And times
No,
have
yeah.
changed. A lot of factors are now implemented. So it's very important for you to readjust, not try to live vicariously through your kid, as you mentioned, or try to make your kid or mold your kid into an image of who you think is right for them. Because sometimes you actually may not necessarily, you may not be right. You may not necessarily actually know your kid, but you're sitting there trying to mold your kid into an image that fits you, that fits your narcissistic behavior. So you can sit there and boast to your friends about how your kid is a doctor, is an engineer, and things like that, without actually paying attention to the kid. And what ends up happening is, a lot of these kids, they may actually conform to that at an early age, but as they get older, that narrative starts conflicting with who they know, or at least who
Yes.
they are. You know
Yeah,
what
it
I'm
does.
saying? And messes with their mental health. And
It does.
unfortunately, some of the kids like myself, we start fighting back and try to break away from that and find ourselves and find our peace. And we get ostracized, we get judged, we get called all kinds of names. And unfortunately, we don't have any type of support system. And unfortunately, I've seen some Nigerians who in America, they go out there, they basically leave all that Nigerian tradition, like not the Nigerian tradition, but that typical toxic Nigerian behavior behind, and they go out
Mm-hmm.
there to find themselves. And the problem is that you go out there, there's so much predators out there, there's so much distractions out there, because you were not prepared by your parents, by your family, given that core basic preparation of how to navigate this crazy ass world. You go out there,
Nope.
you fumble, and when you fumble, your parents or whoever it is back home, they laugh at you, they call you names like,
Yes.
see, stupid, I told you to not go anywhere. You wanted to
Mm-hmm.
go and do this. You wanted to go and do that. They
Yeah,
don't
yeah.
hold
Look, yeah.
themselves accountable. They don't
Look at this
realize,
one. This
you
Look at
know,
this one. Taos,
I
they've used
told
your
you,
future to play free kick.
exactly. No, they'll be like, I told you to read your Bible. I told you to become a doctor. You want to go and pursue music. You want to go and do this. They don't hold themselves accountable and seeing that actually, you're partly responsible for not preparing this kid with love, for not raising them with love, for not supporting them, for not loving them, for not teaching them confidence, for not teaching them people skills. They don't see that part. And that to me irks me. It's very annoying, because I'm not the only one who is in this category. But I'm really glad that there's a lot of Nigerians, like at least Nigerian, not just Nigerians born and raised in America, but also some older Nigerians are starting to challenge that. And I'm really glad
Yes.
to have met people like yourself, and not just you. I've met a lot of people here in Texas who have that mentality to keep challenging the status quo, challenging the norm, in hopes to understand this, because unfortunately, a lot of us, we are our own problems. We are our own worst enemies. Like I said, a lot of these people are very educated, on paper, but they don't apply what it is that they learn from their degrees into their personal life. And I'm so
They-
glad
they-
that I'm
They're
not the
not.
only
They're not enlightened, and the culture.
one.
The culture shuns critical thinking. It shuns it heavily. It shuns in critical thinking. It shuns individualism. And
Yes,
the culture is extremely pretentious. Like African
yes.
parents right now will bash the living hell out of you if you have a friend who has a tattoo. That friend
Mm,
could be very nice, have a job
yep,
where they're making 90K, but once they see that
mm-mm,
tattoo, oh, what are you doing with this devil, this demon? But
uh-huh,
but
yep,
but then they will sit there, and a pastor who is sleeping with married women, oh,
yep,
he's a man of God, he was tempted.
uh-huh.
And you're just kind of looking like, where does this make any sense? How does any of this make any sense?
Yep. It's very true. But again, like I said, the only thing we can do is keep challenging it. Part of my goal is to kind of create like an alliance or like a network of like-minded people so we can keep challenging the norm. Because I'm pretty sure there's a young Nigerian out there who is at the cusp of trying to challenge themselves or challenge the norm and try to find themselves, but they don't have enough support group. Being black and being an immigrant and living in a country where you're not the preferred, it becomes challenging. It's easy to get lost. So part of my
Yes.
goal eventually is to kind of create a network where we can kind of positively reinforce change, growth, within each other, as opposed to just waiting on our Nigerian parents to kind of come around and see that, hey, these people are people too. They're not our property, like our
Yeah,
kids are
no.
not our properties, because unfortunately, if you keep sitting and waiting for these Nigerian parents, it just may not happen. And I know a lot of times that they mean it with love. I really do understand that sometimes with love, but also we should not ignore the toxicity that comes from that kind of mentality that could potentially cause more harm in the life of your child.
Yeah, like what you were saying about, how people stray away from the culture because they feel like the culture is smothering them, so they stray away from the culture and they end up falling into the wrong hands. That is unbelievably real, especially if you go to big cities, if you go to places like Chicago. If in Houston, I think because Houston is more, I guess, family oriented, it's not as bad. But if you go to places like Chicago, New York City, DC, Atlanta,
Hmm.
oh yeah, they are London, they are so far gone. They are
That's thing.
like the
Yeah.
ones who stray from the culture. They are so far. I mean, if you even, let's say their name is, Oluwatoyin, you even call them now, they're
Mm.
like, huh, my name. They're like, my name T. What you talking about? You know, like they don't want it, they want nothing to do with the culture, nothing, because they just kind of feel like, what kind of culture is this where I'm not allowed
Yeah.
to express myself without getting screamed at? I'm not allowed to.
Hmm.
Let's say I like to. I'm not even against. If you want me to be a doctor, fine, but like, let's say I like to do stand-up comedy. Like, why can't I do that on the side without you telling me how do you think you will make it in life as a clown? Like,
Yeah.
it's, like, no one wants to constantly be berated all the time. Like, this person,
Yeah.
they have they have a mind, they have a heart, and when you constantly beat someone down over and over and over again, they'll rebel. They will completely, they will, like, for me it seems like our parents took all the and all the BS they get from, working in white spaces, and they come home, and the kids are the punching bag. The kids bear the brunt cost of everything, all the daily aggressions they deal with outside. They deal with outside, from being an immigrant, from being an African, from being black. The kids, they bear the brunt cost of it, and it should not be that. The kids should not bear
Yeah.
the brunt cost of any of it. And then, there's always, gender issues. The how treating the girl child different from treating the
Yeah.
boy child. There, I mean, it's practically World War III.
Colorism.
Yeah,
So
colorism
much.
too. It's practically
Yeah.
World War III in a lot of these families, because a lot of the
Yeah.
girls feel like they are treated like straight up property. Their bodies are treated like something they need to be ashamed of. And then they
Hmm.
watch their brothers go around and get 3 4 girls pregnant. And if she even, if a boy says hi to her and she says hi back, so you came to America to be a prostitute, eh? You came to America to be a prostitute. Like, the fanaticism is just insane.
Yeah.
It is insane. And it causes, initially it causes fear, and then it causes anger. You see them taking that, and that's why in a lot of these communities, like with the second generation ones who end up becoming doctors, there's some of them that just flat out said they don't want kids because they don't want to
Hmm.
repeat the same cycle, and they don't
Yeah.
know how not to repeat the same cycle, so they don't want kids. There's some of them that say they want kids, but they're not interested in having a kid with a Nigerian or an African or even someone black.
Yeah.
They want to go have a kid with a white woman or a white
Which is
man.
not necessarily which is not necessarily a solution, by the way.
No, it's
Nothing
a
necessarily wrong
terrible
with that,
solution,
but
because that's how culture
but
gets wiped out.
yeah. But
It's a
anyway,
terrible solution. Yeah.
there's so much wrong with Nigeria, at least the Nigerian family dynamics, and I feel like if we keep talking about it, we would not be able to finish today at all. But
Huh.
I don't want this episode to go way too long. And I feel like you and I
Okay.
we definitely be talking, making creative more episodes on topics like this, if that's okay with you.
Oh yeah, I
Before we sign
absolutely,
out.
please.
But before we sign out, if you can kind of really quick, because we're out of time, if you could kind of summarize, if you can give Nigerian parents an advice, like, or anyone, if you can give a Nigerian who is dealing with mental health issues as a result of upbringing, societal pressure, or maybe just societal pressure for living in America as an immigrant, as a Black person, as a woman, LGBTQ, whatever it is, what advice would that be?
So my advice is you are not alone. In a country like this, there are several resources. If you just, a lot of us are on our phone all day. If you go into your phone, you do a Google search. If there are numbers that you can call, and there are people, in help centers that will help you. There's a lot of advocates. There's a lot of advocacies. Don't be ashamed. Don't let anyone shame you into basically, don't let anyone make you feel embarrassed for getting help. If you ever feel like you need to get help, go and do it, and
Hmm.
it'll be the best decision for your life. There's numbers you can call if you're, especially like for LGBT, for depression, even for suicidal thoughts, whatever it is. There's a lot. This country has a lot of resources. There's a lot of
Resources.
nonprofit organizations. There's a lot of nonprofit organizations. If you're in university, take advantage of therapy. It's part of your tuition. I did it for 6 years. It is phenomenal. Take advantage of it. Go once a week, go twice a week, and talk to someone. It's not snitching. You did not do anything wrong. You're not betraying anyone. You're helping yourself. When you're young, that's the best time to help yourself. That's not the time to bottle up everything. So that you don't carry these things into the future. You don't bring any mess
Hmm.
into someone else's life, and you don't push
Hmm.
these things into your kid when you have a kid.
Yep.
So there are resources. They're online. Please get help. I mean, yeah, a lot of this is just a matter of Google search, or even a Facebook search, but like I said, a Google search, and there's a lot of resources. And just calm down and talk to them. If you speak a different language, chances are in a lot of these places there are what's it called, there are people who speak your language. So don't feel intimidated. Don't feel like you're doing anything wrong. You're not doing anything wrong by helping yourself. If you don't feel like your parents understand you, which a lot of your parents don't understand you, there's people out here who do understand you. So don't give up on yourself. Don't give up on your life, and don't let anyone fill your head with any toxicity. Learn how to filter out toxic people and keep them out permanently.
Thank you so much. And I'm going to also try to post some of those resources down below. And really, really quick, because we're really out of time. Could you, if you have any type of message to Nigerian parents, the heavily conformist, heavily overly religious Nigerian parents who just want to drown their kids in toxicity, what message would you give to them?
These are your children that you birthed. Please talk to them. They're not extensions of you. They're not statues. They have a heart, they have a mind, they have feelings. Sit with them and talk to them. Even if you don't like what they have to say, these are your children. If anything bad happens
Hmm.
to you today, if anything bad happens to these children, it is your heart that'll be full of sorrow. It'll be your eyes that are full of tears. So these are your children. It is your job to love and care for them. Again, you guys are being raised in two different cultures and two different worlds, but this is still your DNA. This is your blood. Talk to your kids, and when your kids talk to you, please listen. Just please listen, and stop
Hmm.
shouting at them, stop yelling at them, and don't belittle them. And
Hmm.
also, a lot of you are also going through a lot. Talk to your kids. A lot of y'all need to talk to your kids. A lot of y'all
Hmm.
also need someone to talk to.
Yep. A lot of Nigerian parents need therapy, serious therapy.
Have heavily. A lot of them need a team of psychiatrists.
Yep. I hear you. Thank you so much though. Thank you so much. Like I said, this is a very broad topic, and I feel
Yeah.
like we're definitely going to be talking more in depth, when it comes to specifics of being Nigerian, some of the things that we Nigerians, even here in America and also back in Nigeria, some of the things that we deal with and that we feel like we're not heard, we're not represented, we're not,
Yes.
there's no outlet at all. It's already hard enough living in a white dominated
As
society
a black person. Yep.
as a black person or an immigrant or a child of an immigrant with an accent, foreign
Mm-hmm.
degrees or whatnot. And then of course you have other social disabilities, and we don't have any outlets. It breaks my heart when I see some of my white friends, casually say that, let's say they're having a bad day. They just get on the phone and talk to their mom or talk to their dad and have that kind of relationship with them. But people like us, we don't have that. Like when you call your dad on the phone, try to
Yeah. See,
rant or maybe
I
vent,
see.
they shut you down. You know what I'm saying? It
Yeah.
breaks my heart. And unfortunately, I feel like we need to bring more awareness to this as how that's detrimental to not just our mental health, but as the person as a whole. Um,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
thank you
I
so
see.
much, though.
I talk to my mom daily, so a lot of I have Nigerian friends who tell me like I wish I could do that, but yeah, I feel you.
Mhm. Yeah. Thank you very much, though. I really do appreciate it. And I'm looking forward to talking to you again.
Thank you so
Yeah.
much. I appreciate. I won't talk so much next time, but thank you so much.
That's fine. I love the passion. I talk a lot too when I'm very passionate when I'm talking about like a really passionate thing or something that's very personal to me. So it's not a problem. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a nice day.
All right.
Bye.
Have a good night. Bye bye.